The Apache's secret codes. The telegraph key clicked frantically in the small wooden office overlooking the dusty main street of Silverbrook, Arizona Territory in the scorching summer of 1886. James Sullivan, the town's only telegraph operator, wiped the sweat from his weathered brow as he transcribed another mysterious message that had been arriving daily for the past 3 weeks. These weren't ordinary communications. They were written in strange symbols that resembled Apache pictographs mixed with complex geometric patterns he had never encountered before in his extensive career. James was 28 years old, a former Union Army communications specialist who had come west after the Civil War, seeking a quieter, more peaceful life than the bloody battlefields had provided. He had settled in Silverbrook because it was a crucial communication link between the territorial capital and the remote military outposts scattered throughout dangerous Apache country. His small office, equipped with the latest and most advanced telegraph equipment available, connected this isolated frontier town to the wider world beyond the harsh desert mountains. But these mysterious coded messages were unlike anything in his extensive military experience with complex battlefield communications. They arrived at irregular intervals, sometimes in the early morning hours when the office was supposed to be closed, sometimes during the busy afternoon commercial traffic. The symbols were intricate and appeared to follow a complex pattern, but James couldn't decipher their meaning despite his professional training. "Another one of those strange messages, James?" asked Sheriff Tom Crawford, stepping into the telegraph office with a cup of coffee and a concerned expression. Crawford was a practical man who had seen enough frontier violence to be suspicious of anything unusual. "Third one this week," James replied, showing the sheriff the paper covered in mysterious symbols. "They're getting more frequent and more complex. Someone's sending these deliberately, but I can't figure out what they're trying to communicate." Sheriff Crawford studied the symbols with a frown. "What could be Apache war signals? We've had reports of increased activity in the mountains. Maybe they've figured out how to use our own telegraph lines against us." James nodded thoughtfully. "That's what I'm afraid of. But if these are Apache communications, we need someone who can read their language and symbols. Problem is, there aren't many people in town who speak Apache, and fewer still who would be willing to help decode what might be enemy messages." "There's one person," Sheriff Crawford said slowly. "That Apache woman who runs the trading post on the edge of town. Nayeli, I think her name is. She speaks perfect English, seems educated. But James," Crawford paused, "if these messages are Apache war plans, involving her could be dangerous for everyone." James had heard of Nayeli, but had never met her personally. She ran a small trading post where settlers could exchange goods with Apache tribes under carefully negotiated peace agreements. She was known for her intelligence, her ability to speak multiple languages, and her reputation as an honest broker between the two communities. But asking an Apache woman to decode potentially hostile Apache messages was a delicate and potentially explosive situation. That evening, as the sun set behind the red rock formations surrounding Silverbrook, James made a decision that would change his life forever. He locked the telegraph office, tucked the coded messages into his jacket, and walked to the edge of town where Nayeli's trading post stood beneath a cluster of cottonwood trees. The trading post was a sturdy adobe building, decorated with both Apache and Mexican influences. Colorful blankets hung from wooden posts, and the scent of sage and leather filled the warm evening air. James approached the front door nervously, unsure how to begin this conversation. When the door opened, he found himself facing one of the most beautiful women he had ever seen. Nayeli appeared to be in her mid-20s, with long black hair that fell in waves past her shoulders and intelligent dark eyes that seemed to see right through him. She wore a simple but elegant dress that combined traditional Apache elements with more conventional frontier fashion. "Mr. Sullivan," she said with a slight smile, surprising him by knowing his name. "You're the telegraph operator. What brings you to my humble establishment?" How did you know who I was?" James asked, taken aback by her direct manner and perfect, unaccented English. In a town this small, everyone knows everyone else, even if they haven't been formally introduced. "Please, come in. I suspect you have something interesting to discuss with me. James followed her into the trading post, which was filled with a fascinating mixture of Apache crafts, settler goods, and items that clearly came from Mexico and other distant places. The interior was clean and well organized, suggesting a mind that valued order and precision. "I need your help with something sensitive," James began carefully. "There have been some unusual telegraph messages coming through my office. They're written in what appears to be Apache symbols, and I need someone who can help me understand what they mean." Nayeli's expression became more serious. "Show me these messages." James hesitated for a moment, then pulled the papers from his jacket. Nayeli studied them carefully, her eyes moving across the symbols with obvious recognition. After several minutes of silence, she looked up at James with an expression he couldn't quite read. "These are very sophisticated," she said finally. "Whoever created them understands both traditional Apache pictographs and some kind of cipher system. This isn't simple tribal communication. Can you decode them?" Nayeli was quiet for a long moment, seemingly wrestling with some internal decision. "Mr. Sullivan, before I answer that question, I need to know something. If I help you decode these messages, what do you intend to do with the information?" "Report it to the sheriff and the territorial authorities," James replied honestly. "If these are Apache war plans or communications about attacks on settlements, people need to be warned. And if they're not war plans, if they're something else entirely—" James studied her face, sensing there was more to this conversation than he understood. "Then we would deal with whatever they actually are." "But Nayeli, I have to ask, do you know something about these messages that you're not telling me?" Nayeli turned away from him, walking to the window that looked out over the desert landscape bathed in twilight colors. When she spoke, her voice was soft but clear. "Mr. Sullivan, James, I need to tell you something that will be difficult to believe and perhaps dangerous to know. But if we're going to work together on this, you need to understand the full situation." She turned back to face him, her expression now completely serious. "I wrote those messages." James felt the world shift beneath his feet. "You, what?" "I am the source of the coded Apache messages you've been receiving. I've been using your telegraph system to send communications to Apache leaders throughout the territory." James instinctively stepped backward, his hand moving toward the pistol on his belt. "You're a spy. You're coordinating Apache attacks." "No," Nayeli said firmly, raising her hands to show she meant no threat. "You're half right. I am coordinating with Apache leaders, but not for attacks. I'm working to prevent a war that would destroy both our peoples." "I don't understand." Nayeli moved to a desk and pulled out a folder filled with papers. 3 months ago, I discovered that certain individuals, both white and Apache, are trying to sabotage the peace negotiations between the territorial government and Apache tribes. They want a war because war is profitable for them." She spread the papers on the table between them. James could see maps, names, dates, and detailed notes written in multiple languages. "These people are selling weapons to renegade Apache bands while simultaneously providing information about Apache movements to unscrupulous settlers who want to steal tribal lands. They're playing both sides against each other, and innocent people on both sides are dying." James looked at the documents with growing amazement. This is incredibly detailed intelligence. How did you gather all this?" "I move between both communities. People trust me because I've always dealt fairly with everyone. But trust also means that people tell me things they wouldn't tell others. Over time, I began to see patterns, connections that revealed this conspiracy. And the coded messages. I've been sharing information with Apache leaders who are committed to peace, warning them about planned provocations and helping them avoid traps. The codes are designed to look like traditional Apache communications in case they're intercepted, but they actually contain specific intelligence about the conspiracy." James sank into a chair, overwhelmed by the implications of what Nayeli was telling him. "You're fighting a secret war to prevent an open war." "Exactly. But I can't do it alone anymore. The conspiracy is growing, and they're getting more sophisticated. I need allies who have access to communication networks and official channels. Why should I trust you? How do I know this isn't an elaborate deception? Nayeli reached into another folder and pulled out a single piece of paper. Because tomorrow night, if you do nothing, the Morrison Ranch will be attacked by a group of men dressed as Apache warriors. The real Apache tribes have nothing to do with it, but the attack will be blamed on them. This will be used as justification for military action against peaceful Apache settlements. James studied the paper, which contained detailed information about the planned false flag operation. The level of detail was extraordinary: names, times, weapons, even descriptions of the fake Apache clothing the attackers would wear. How did you learn about this? One of the conspirators got drunk and started bragging to his girlfriend, who happens to buy supplies from my trading post. She doesn't understand the significance of what she heard, but I do. James looked up at Nayeli. If what you're telling me is true, we have to stop this attack. Yes, but carefully. If we simply warn the Morrisons or send the sheriff, the conspirators will know their security has been compromised. They'll go underground and continue their work more carefully. We need to catch them in the act. What are you proposing? I propose that we work together. You have access to official communication channels and law enforcement. I have intelligence networks that reach deep into both communities. Together we can not only stop this attack but expose the entire conspiracy. James stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the peaceful town of Silverbrook. Somewhere out there, people were planning violence that would destroy this fragile peace. The decision he made in the next few minutes would affect hundreds of lives. If I agree to work with you, he said finally, I'm committing treason according to some people's definition. I'm trusting an Apache woman with information that could be used against white settlers. And if I continue to work with you, Nayeli replied, I'm trusting a white man with information that could be used to destroy Apache communities. We're both taking enormous risks. James turned back to face her. But you're right about one thing. Innocent people are going to die if we don't act. Does that mean you'll help me? James nodded slowly. Yes, but I want to see more proof, and I want to understand exactly how these codes work. Over the next several hours, Nayeli showed James the intricate system she had developed for encoding and transmitting intelligence. It was brilliant in its complexity, combining traditional Apache pictographs with mathematical substitution codes and steganographic techniques that hid messages within seemingly innocent communications. You could have been a professional cryptographer, James observed with genuine admiration. I learned from Jesuit missionaries who taught me Latin and mathematics, combined with traditional Apache knowledge systems that use visual symbols to convey complex information. It's a unique combination that most people wouldn't think to look for. As they worked together to decode the recent messages and plan their intervention in the Morrison Ranch attack, James found himself developing deep respect for Nayeli's intelligence and dedication. She wasn't a spy or a traitor. She was a patriot fighting for peace in the only way available to her. The night of the Morrison Ranch operation, James and Nayeli positioned themselves in the hills overlooking the property. They had secretly alerted Sheriff Crawford, providing him with enough evidence to justify intervention without revealing their full intelligence operation. When the attack came, it unfolded exactly as Nayeli's intelligence had predicted. A group of white men dressed in stolen Apache clothing attempted to raid the ranch, but they found Sheriff Crawford and his deputies waiting for them instead of surprised victims. The arrests led to confessions, which led to the exposure of the entire conspiracy. Within weeks, a network of arms dealers, corrupt officials, and land speculators was dismantled. The evidence that James and Nayeli had gathered proved instrumental in preventing what could have been a devastating war. But their partnership had consequences neither of them had fully anticipated. Working so closely together, sharing dangerous secrets and high-stakes missions, had created a bond that went far beyond professional cooperation. James, Nayeli said one evening as they reviewed intelligence reports in her trading post, there's something I need to tell you. What is it? I've been offered a position with the territorial government. They want me to serve as an official liaison between Apache communities and the administration. It's a recognition of the work we've done together. James smiled. That's wonderful. You've earned that recognition. But it would mean leaving Silverbrook. moving to the territorial capital. The implications hung in the air between them. Over the months of their secret partnership, they had fallen in love, though neither had spoken the words aloud. The work had brought them together, but now success was threatening to tear them apart. "James, I want you to know that everything we've accomplished, stopping the war, exposing the conspiracy, saving lives, none of it would have been possible without your courage and trust. You risked everything to work with me." "We risked everything together," James replied, "and I'd do it again." Nayeli moved closer to him. "Would you do it again in the territorial capital? They'll need someone to manage the new inter-community communication network we've helped design. Someone who understands both the technology and the delicate relationships involved." James looked into her eyes and saw his future reflected there. "Are you asking me to come with you? I'm asking if you want to build something bigger than what we have here. A communication network that serves peace instead of war, understanding instead of suspicion." James pulled her into his arms. "Yes," he said simply, "to all of it, to the job, to the capital, to building something together." Their kiss was interrupted by the sound of the telegraph key clicking in the distance. James's equipment picking up a routine message from the territorial capital. But now, instead of mysterious codes and hidden threats, it represented something hopeful, a future where communication would serve truth and justice. Months later, the James Sullivan Nayeli communication network became the model for inter-community relations throughout the Southwest. Their story proved that trust, courage, and love could overcome even the most carefully planned conspiracies of hatred and division. The mysterious Apache codes that had started everything were eventually donated to the territorial archives, where they served as evidence of how individuals working together could change the course of history. But for James and Nayeli, the most important code they had cracked was the one that opened their hearts to each other and to the possibility of peace.